The year is 1947. After centuries under British rule, the Indian subcontinent is on the verge of freedom. But independence comes at a heavy price. The once united land is being torn apart, divided along religious lines. Out of the ashes of empire rise two new nations, India and Pakistan. The stroke of a pen on a map, drawn by distant hands with little understanding of the ancient tapestry they were about to shred. A line that would cleave a civilization, separating Hindus and Muslims, igniting a firestorm of displacement and violence. Millions, driven by hope and fear, were uprooted from their ancestral homes, forced to traverse newly formed borders in a desperate search for safety and belonging. The birth of India and Pakistan was a momentous occasion, a triumph of self-determination after centuries of colonial rule. Yet this freedom was tragically intertwined with unimaginable suffering, a stark reminder that even in victory there can be profound loss. The partition was a chaotic and bloody affair, a testament to the enduring power of religious and ethnic divisions. The partition triggered one of the largest mass migrations in human history. Hindus, Muslims and Sikhs, once neighbors and friends, were now set against each other. Fear and suspicion ran rampant, fueling a wave of unimaginable violence that swept across the land. Families were torn apart, their homes and livelihoods reduced to ashes. The lucky ones escaped with their lives, carrying only the weight of their memories and the scars of trauma. Countless others perished along the way, victims of communal violence, disease, or exhaustion. The human cost of partition was staggering, a dark chapter etched into the collective memory of both nations. The stories of those who lived through the partitions are filled with both horror and resilience. They speak of unimaginable loss, of the pain of leaving behind everything they held dear. But they also speak of courage, of the enduring human spirit that refused to be extinguished even in the face of unspeakable adversity. The legacy of partition continues to cast a long shadow over India and Pakistan. The two nations born out of the same womb of history remain locked in a cycle of mistrust and animosity. The physical border that divides them is a constant reminder of the shared pain and enduring divisions of the past. The partition was not merely a geographical division, it was a deep psychological wound on the subcontinent's soul. It sowed the seeds of mistrust and animosity that continue to plague relations between India and Pakistan to this day. The two nations, once united by a shared history and culture, are now separated by a chasm of suspicion and hostility. Two nations, one land. A line was drawn, and history was never the same. This is the story of India and Pakistan, a tale of two siblings forever bound by blood and history, yet tragically separated by the events of 1947. Barely months after the euphoria of independence, the blood-soaked soil of the subcontinent was once again stained with the horrors of war. The idyllic region of Kashmir, nestled high in the Himalayas, became the battleground for the first chapter of a long and bitter conflict between India and Pakistan. The dispute over Kashmir's accession, a complex web of princely states and political maneuvering, ignited a conflict that would forever alter the relationship between the two fledgling nations. India, claiming the Maharaja of Kashmir's instrument of accession, and Pakistan, fueled by the region's Muslim-majority demographics, locked horns in a fierce struggle for control. The First Kashmir War was a brutal affair, fought with a ferocity that belied the inexperience of the newly formed armies. Soldiers on both sides, many of whom had fought side by side in World War II, now faced each other across a divided land. Their camaraderie replaced by the cold reality of conflict. The war ended with a ceasefire brokered by the United Nations, but the underlying tensions remained, a smouldering ember, awaiting the next gust of wind to fan them back into flames. The human cost of this first conflict was immense. Thousands of soldiers and civilians perished in the fighting, and countless others were displaced from their homes, forced to seek refuge in makeshift camps. The war left an indelible scar on the collective psyche of both nations, a grim reminder of the fragility of peace and the enduring legacy of partition. The unresolved issue of Kashmir continued to cast a long shadow over the Indian subcontinent. In 1965, tensions flared once again, erupting into a full-blown war that engulfed the plains of Punjab. The conflict was characterized by intense tank battles, daring air raids, and a level of violence that shocked the world. The 1965 war, though militarily inconclusive, further deepened the mistrust and animosity between India and Pakistan. The Tashkent Agreement, signed in the aftermath of the war, failed to address the root causes of the conflict, leaving the issue of Kashmir unresolved and a breeding ground for future tensions. Just 6 years later, in 1971, a new chapter unfolded in the tragic saga of India-Pakistan relations. The Bangladesh Liberation War, sparked by the brutal crackdown on Bengali nationalists in East Pakistan, drew India into a direct confrontation with Pakistan. The war was a testament to the human cost of political and ethnic divisions, a stark reminder of the horrors that can unfold when the cries for self-determination are silenced by force. The 1971 war resulted in a decisive victory for India and the birth of Bangladesh as an independent nation. For Pakistan, it was a humiliating defeat, a loss that cut deep into its national psyche. The war also witnessed one of the largest surrenders in modern military history, with over 90,000 Pakistani soldiers laying down their arms. The late 20th century witnessed a new kind of warfare emerge in the icy heights of the Himalayas. The Kargil conflict of 1999 was a stark departure from the conventional battles fought in the plains below. It was a war fought in the rarefied air of some of the world's highest peaks, a testament to the endurance and courage of soldiers on both sides. The conflict began with the infiltration of Pakistani troops, disguised as Kashmiri militants, into the Indian-controlled side of the line of control. The intrusion, initially dismissed as a minor incursion, soon escalated into a full-blown conflict, with India launching a massive military operation to evict the intruders. The year 1998 marked a turning point in the tumultuous relationship between India and Pakistan, a chilling escalation that sent shockwaves across the globe. In a display of nationalistic fervor and military might, both nations conducted a series of nuclear tests, shattering the illusion of peace and ushering in a new era defined by fear and uncertainty. The world watched in horror as the Indian subcontinent transformed into a potential nuclear flashpoint. The tests, conducted in rapid succession, were a stark reminder of the devastating power at the fingertips of these two rivals, a power capable of annihilating millions in an instant. The international community, caught off guard by this sudden and dangerous development, scrambled to contain the crisis. Condemnation poured in from global powers, sanctions were imposed, and diplomatic channels were activated in a desperate attempt to prevent a nuclear catastrophe. The spectre of nuclear war, once a distant nightmare confined to the Cold War era, had now reared its ugly head in South Asia. The delicate balance of power had been irrevocably disrupted, and the world held its breath, uncertain of what the future held. The shadow of the mushroom cloud loomed large over the Indian subcontinent and beyond. The 1998 nuclear tests had unleashed a new era of anxiety, a constant reminder of the immense destructive potential that lay dormant but ever present. The people of India and Pakistan, already burdened by decades of conflict and mistrust, now faced an even more terrifying reality. The threat of nuclear annihilation, once a distant abstraction, had become a chilling possibility, a spectre haunting their daily lives. The global community, deeply concerned by this volatile situation, grappled with the implications of a nuclear-armed South Asia. The spectre of a regional conflict escalating into a global nuclear conflagration became a very real concern. The nuclear tests had not only raised the stakes in the India-Pakistan conflict, but had also transformed the geopolitical landscape, forcing the world to confront the uncomfortable reality of nuclear proliferation. In the aftermath of the 1998 nuclear tests, India and Pakistan found themselves locked in a perilous dance on the edge of a razor blade. The balance of terror, a chilling concept born of the Cold War, had taken root in South Asia. The two nations, now possessing the ultimate weapons of destruction, engaged in a dangerous game of brinkmanship, each side acutely aware of the devastating consequences of any miscalculation. The line of control, already a volatile flashpoint, became even more precarious, a tinderbox that could ignite a nuclear inferno with the slightest spark. The international community, acutely aware of the dangers posed by this nuclear standoff, intensified efforts to promote dialogue and confidence-building measures between the two rivals. The spectre of a nuclear exchange between India and Pakistan became a constant worry, a stark reminder of the fragility of peace in a world teetering on the brink. The nuclear tests of 1998 had fundamentally altered the nature of the India-Pakistan conflict, transforming it from a regional dispute into a global concern. The world watched with bated breath, hoping that wisdom and restraint would prevail, praying that the mushroom cloud would forever remain a haunting symbol of a future averted. The dawn of the 21st century saw a shift in the nature of conflict between India and Pakistan. The spectre of nuclear war, while still a terrifying possibility, receded into the background as a new form of warfare emerged. A shadowy struggle fought in the shadows, a war of attrition waged through proxies and terrorism. Gone were the days of large-scale conventional battles fought across international borders. In their place arose a new era of asymmetric warfare, a complex and insidious struggle characterized by deniable attacks, cross-border infiltration, and the deliberate targeting of civilians. This new form of conflict proved to be a particularly difficult challenge for both nations. The traditional rules of engagement no longer applied, and the line between war and peace became increasingly blurred. The constant threat of terrorism created an atmosphere of fear and uncertainty, casting a long shadow over the lives of ordinary citizens. The international community, grappling with its own challenges posed by global terrorism, found itself increasingly drawn into the India-Pakistan conflict, urging both sides to exercise restraint and seek a peaceful resolution. However, the deep-seated mistrust and historical grievances between the two nations continued to fuel the cycle of violence, making a lasting peace seem like an elusive dream. The year 2016 witnessed a dramatic escalation in tensions between India and Pakistan, shattering the fragile peace that had held for over a decade. The Uri attack, a brazen assault on an Indian army base in the disputed region of Kashmir, sent shockwaves across the nation and brought the two nuclear-armed neighbors perilously close to the brink of war. The attack, carried out by heavily armed militants who infiltrated across the line of control, resulted in the deaths of 19 Indian soldiers, making it one of the deadliest attacks on Indian security forces in recent memory. The audacity and brutality of the assault sent a wave of anger and outrage across India, prompting calls for swift and decisive retaliation. The Indian government, under intense public pressure to act, responded with what it termed surgical strikes, targeted cross-border raids against terrorist launch pads and infrastructure in Pakistan-controlled Kashmir. The strikes, announced publicly by the Indian government, marked a significant departure from India's traditional policy of strategic restraint. Pakistan, while denying the strikes took place, condemned India's actions as a violation of its sovereignty and vowed to retaliate if necessary. The international community, fearing a dangerous escalation, urged both sides to show restraint and de-escalate the situation. The cycle of violence, once set in motion, proved difficult to break. In 2019, the world watched with bated breath as tensions between India and Pakistan once again flared up, threatening to plunge the region into a full-blown conflict. The Pulwama attack, a suicide bombing targeting a convoy of Indian security personnel in Kashmir, proved to be a grim turning point. The attack, claimed by the Pakistan-based terrorist group Jaish-e-Mohammed, resulted in the deaths of 40 Indian soldiers, making it the deadliest attack on Indian security forces in 3 decades. The scale and brutality of the attack sent shockwaves across India, triggering widespread outrage and demands for revenge. India, determined to deliver a strong message, responded with airstrikes against what it claimed were terrorist training camps in Balakot, Pakistan. The strikes, the first by the Indian Air Force across the line of control since the 1971 war, marked a significant escalation in the conflict. Pakistan, denying the existence of any terrorist camps in Balakot, retaliated by scrambling its own fighter jets, leading to a brief but tense aerial engagement. The incident, which saw an Indian pilot captured and later released by Pakistan, brought the 2 nuclear-armed neighbors perilously close to the brink of war. The international community, fearing a catastrophic escalation, intervened diplomatically, urging both sides to exercise restraint and de-escalate the situation. The crisis, while averted for the time being, served as a stark reminder of the volatile and unpredictable nature of the India-Pakistan conflict, a conflict with no easy solutions in sight. The year is 2025. The world, weary from pandemics and grappling with climate change, barely registered the initial tremors of what would become a major international crisis. It began, as it had so many times before, in the disputed region of Kashmir. A border skirmish, a stray bullet, an accusation, the truth lost in the fog of accusations and denials. Whatever the catalyst, the result was tragically predictable, a rapid escalation of violence, pulling India and Pakistan back into the abyss of war. Within days, the conflict spiraled beyond the familiar rhythms of cross-border shelling and surgical strikes. This time, the stakes were higher, the rhetoric more inflammatory, the red lines crossed with terrifying ease. Columns of tanks rumbled across the international border, their heavy treads crushing the dreams of peace that had flickered so briefly. Fighter jets dueled in the skies above Kashmir, their contrails painting deadly arcs against the backdrop of the Himalayas. As the world held its breath, the conflict expanded beyond the immediate theatre of Kashmir. Cities across India and Pakistan, once bustling hubs of life and commerce, found themselves transformed into targets. Air raid sirens pierced the night, sending terrified civilians scrambling for shelter in underground bunkers and makeshift bomb shelters. The eerie glow of distant explosions illuminated the darkened streets, casting long shadows of fear and uncertainty. The international community, caught off guard by the speed and ferocity of the escalation, scrambled to contain the crisis. Frantic diplomatic efforts were launched, urging both sides to exercise restraint and step back from the brink. But the pleas for peace seemed to fall on deaf ears, drowned out by the deafening roar of artillery fire and the chilling pronouncements of leaders on both sides, their voices laced with a toxic mix of nationalism and fear. As the days bled into weeks, the conflict took on a brutal momentum of its own. The initial shock and disbelief gave way to a grim acceptance that the unthinkable had happened. India and Pakistan, two nuclear-armed nations, were once again locked in a deadly embrace. The world watched in horror as the conflict unfolded, a stark reminder of the fragility of peace in the 21st century. The fog of war descended, obscuring the truth and fueling a torrent of misinformation and propaganda. Each side blamed the other for starting the conflict, each claiming self-defense while accusing the other of unprovoked aggression. The casualty figures mounted with each passing day, a grim testament to the human cost of this latest chapter in a seemingly endless cycle of violence. The global economy, already reeling from the aftershocks of the pandemic and climate change, took another hit as the conflict disrupted supply chains and sent shockwaves through global markets. The spectre of a wider conflict, drawing in regional and global powers, loomed large, casting a long shadow over an already uncertain future. The international community, deeply divided and struggling to find common ground, seemed powerless to stop the bloodshed. The United Nations, hamstrung by the veto power of its permanent members, found itself unable to take decisive action. The conflict, once a regional issue, had morphed into a global crisis, a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of the modern world and the shared responsibility to prevent such tragedies. And now, the War of 2025, which erupted in May, marks a new chapter in the decades-long conflict. The echoes of 1947, 1965, 1971 and 1999 reverberate through the battlefields of today, a haunting reminder of the enduring legacy of partition and the seemingly intractable nature of the India-Pakistan rivalry. The same grievances, the same territorial disputes, the same historical wounds, all conspire to keep the flames of conflict burning. But even amidst the darkness, glimmers of hope persist. The shared history and culture of India and Pakistan, though often overshadowed by conflict, cannot be erased. The bonds of language, food, music, and family transcend the political and ideological divides that have driven them apart. There are those on both sides who yearn for a different future, a future where dialogue replaces violence and where cooperation replaces confrontation. Will this be the final war between India and Pakistan, or just the beginning of something even greater? Will they find a way to break free from the shackles of the past and forge a new path forward, one based on mutual respect and peaceful coexistence? The answers to these questions remain elusive, shrouded in the fog of war and the uncertainty of the future. But one thing is certain: the choices made today will have profound consequences for generations to come. The story of India and Pakistan is a profound tragedy, a tale of two siblings locked in a seemingly endless cycle of conflict and mistrust. The events of 1947, the violent birth of these two nations, cast a long shadow over the subcontinent, shaping their destinies and fueling a rivalry that has claimed countless lives and consumed generations. The four major wars, the nuclear tests, the countless skirmishes and terrorist attacks, each conflict, each act of violence has only served to deepen the chasm of suspicion and animosity, making the pursuit of peace feel like an elusive dream. The weight of history, laden with the pain of partition, the bitterness of war, and the enduring legacy of mistrust, hangs heavy over any attempt at reconciliation. Yet, even as we acknowledge the weight of history, we must also recognize the fragility of peace. The very fact that India and Pakistan have managed to coexist, albeit uneasily, for over 7 decades, is a testament to the enduring hope for a better future. The numerous ceasefires, the diplomatic efforts, the people-to-people initiatives, all represent a flicker of light in the darkness, a testament to the human spirit's refusal to succumb to despair. The question remains, can India and Pakistan break free from the shackles of their past and chart a new course, one founded on dialogue, cooperation, and mutual respect? Can they transcend the legacy of partition and embrace the possibility of a shared future where the echoes of war are replaced by the sounds of peace? The narrative of India and Pakistan need not be defined solely by conflict. Beneath the layers of mistrust and animosity lies a shared history, a common cultural heritage, and a deep connection that transcends political boundaries. The music of Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan knows no borders, just as the poetry of Gulzar transcends political divides. The aroma of biryani wafts through homes on both sides of the border, a reminder of the shared culinary traditions that unite them. The future of India and Pakistan is not preordained. The choice lies in their hands, in the hands of their leaders, and most importantly, in the hands of their people. They can choose to remain trapped in the cycle of animosity, their destinies forever intertwined with conflict and mistrust. Or they can choose to confront their shared history, to acknowledge the pain and suffering on both sides, and to embark on a path of reconciliation and healing. The road to peace will be long and arduous, fraught with challenges and setbacks. It will require courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to dialogue and understanding. It will demand leadership that prioritizes the well-being of its people over political expediency, and a willingness to confront the ghosts of the past with honesty and empathy. The world watches, hopeful yet uncertain, as India and Pakistan stand at a crossroads. The path they choose will not only determine their own destinies, but will also have profound implications for regional and global peace. The time has come for both nations to decide. Will they allow the weight of history to drag them down, or will they rise above the legacy of conflict and embrace the possibility of a shared future? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.